The Hunger Games, the first part of the quadrilogy of films adapted from the extremely successful book series written by Suzanne Collins. Film stars Jennifer Lawrence, Josh Hutcherson, Stanley Tucci, Elizabeth Banks, Woody Harrelson, and Donald Sutherland. This entire series of films has been somewhat of a phenomenon when it was first coming out. Massive financial success and huge presence in the pop culture also inspired a number of other similar movie series to be made, like Maze Runner or Divergent. I never really got into these films, but I figured with a prequel coming out soon, I might as well just sit down and finally watch them now. So the gist of the story is, I think, known even to people who, like myself, had no direct contact with the franchise before. Dystopian futuristic society, as punishment for a failed rebellion many years before, all districts governed by the capital are forced to each year provide one male and one female teenager to compete in the Hunger Games, which are gladiatorial contests to the death where only 1 out of 24 competitors ends up alive. Katniss Everdeen, our hero, played by Jennifer Lawrence, is of course one of those competitors after volunteering in place of her sister. So even though this first movie is somewhat predictable in where it will go and where it will end up, thanks to the formula that has since become very well explored in Western media, but even before that perfected, I think, by various shonen anime, if you think about it, even though the gist of that story will be familiar, I think the execution is what makes for an entertaining viewing experience. The performances are very good. The world building is interesting. I think that as a non-reader of the source novels, the movie does a really good job of being an adaptation, where in multiple instances I thought to myself, okay, it's clear that something was cut or omitted here, that we are missing some sort of backstory or exposition. But crucially, I was able to each time, I think, figure out based on the context what the missing thing was. Like the best example being probably the character of Haymitch and why he is the way he is. I think that's generally a sign of good efficiency when adapting a book. I also rather enjoyed the camera work and the way that the movie is shot. A lot is done with shaky cam, very raw, very naturalistic style. Lots of movement, lots of close-ups, a lot of footage looking almost like wartime documentary sort of thing. And that combined with very effective use of silences and muffled sounds in some key sequences, like the opening minutes of the Hunger Games themselves, it really, I think, puts you in there with the characters. I will say that from what I've read, the violence had to be toned down significantly from the books, which I think is a shame because I would have liked for the movie to be even more brutal and to drive the point home that this is not such, this is not some cool thing happening. And I also want to say that single scene where Katniss finds Peeta disguised as a muddy piece of tree near the river is fucking hilarious in an unintended way. Like, bro, what is this? It's so stupid. Other than that, I don't really have a lot of complaints. I mean, it's an okay film, with the caveat that it is fairly by the book, but I won't hold that against it because I've read that the sequels especially go much more into the direction of trying to sort of deconstruct the genre and have a more cynical look at the idea of these teenage revolutionaries and young adult stories. We'll see if that's true. For now, I treat this first one as a solid setup for that, where the story can continue, but also an enjoyable film in its own right.